And welcome, folks, to another episode of Breakthrough Brands Getting It Wrong to Get It Right. And this week, we're going to focus on the automotive industry, or as you and me like to call it, dealerships. Dealerships play an important part in our society. You know, what they sell gets us from A to B. But what they sell is more. What they do is more. It's about customer engagement. It's about customer experience. And what I want to do today is I don't want to focus on the end user and how you deal with cars or going into dealerships, but this is about the dealerships themselves. How can they be better? How can they interact with you, the customer? And also, what services they can provide themselves to be better right across the board. And today we have global solutions. Don, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe. Good to be back.
Don, tell me a little bit about yourself before we start hitting you with a lot of questions. What's your background?
Well, automotive. I started selling cars when I was 18, um, and I had a pretty good job with Exxon USA downtown in Houston. So they were really surprised when I quit them to go sell cars. And I remember the guy said, "Well, how can you not stand knowing what you're going to make from one month to the next?" I said, "Well, I figured it out. I can't stand knowing that this is all I'm going to make if I stay here." And of course, the first month I exceeded that, and then some, and just sort of found it to be I got paid to talk, something I already love to do, and helping people is just in my nature. I found that part of it, very interesting. But 20 years of automotive retail experience, all the way from sales to corporate general manager. Um, Said it ever got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore, I was going to find something else to do. And I made it as far as initially advertising for car dealers. And we did that right up until '08 when it didn't look like it was going to be much fun anymore. And we watched all the big boys go down on TV and all that stuff. And we started looking at digital in a different way. We had done traditional radio, TV, billboard, things of that nature up until that time. Uh, Obviously, the only thing that stayed or remained after 2008 that I could tell was digital. No radio, no TV, and a lot of other things had gone away. So we sort of got our roots in digital way back then, and continued to use those, both on the agency side that we own, but with Global Dealer Solutions, it brought in a new opportunity to provide services for dealerships that don't always feel comfortable making those decisions. And because of our model of being product agnostic or even provider agnostic, we're really matching up what products and their support team can do for a dealership, because all those things are important.
Yeah, the words that are popping into my head is, digital transformation. Um, and some dealers out there, especially in Europe as well, when you hear about digital transformation, it scares them, because they're used to traditional ways of marketing or promoting a dealership. And they call it the black arts, that there's been many people spending a lot of money on products and service through the digital age to get someone in the door, and it hasn't happened. So it scares them. Um, but yourself is you, if I'm correct, you're actually taking that fear away from them and offering them a solution that can actually give them results. Would I be correct in saying that, Don?
Oh, for sure. And I think that whole conversation or transaction is, um, in fact, just this morning I had a call from a referral, and you know, tech said you could help me out with, and sort of explained the situation. And it's really it's interesting to see the reaction, because they're looking for a sale. Like, I'm not even sure what you need yet. I don't know what to sell you. I said, I need to take a look in these areas. If you get me access, I'll give you my best recommendations, and then we'll come up with what provider would best serve you and your team. So that's a really good snapshot of how it typically starts, because we're not aware of anybody else that really does what we do. Part of this was because we consulted for some of these companies for a period of time, uh, and I just saw how broken the model is. They call them vendors, right? It's the biggest joke inside the dealership. They all scatter when one comes through the door, and I realized real fast, quick in a hurry, I didn't want to be a vendor. So we decided we were going to be solutioneers. So we find solutions to problems that dealers have and sometimes don't know they have. But just having a different perspective, a lot of these digital, there's a period of time I could have told you that dealership receptionists were giving more digital advice than anybody in the dealership, because the dealers thought, well, they know they're always on their phones doing that social media. So it has been a transformation, and you don't know what you don't know, and you can only learn it the way you learn it. Our goal is to educate as we go for those that care to know. There's a big part of the business that really isn't concerned about knowing how to do it. They just want you to make it happen. So we're prepared for those things and address them in that manner.
Like yourself, I started off, in the motor trade selling cars, and then I went into the dealer management side, the software side. So I got to see both sides of dealerships, right? And I was blessed to be able to do that in Europe and in the US as well. And a dealership has so many moving parts. You have the sales department, you have the parts department, you have the service, you've got the accounts department, you've got the tech guys, you have the valeters, you have all these different people with different personalities, all functioning under the one label. And I was doing an analogy for someone the other day talking about marketing. And I said, the manufacturer, advertises the car. The distributor within the state advertises the car. The dealership advertises the car. The used car guy down the road advertises the car. And all these people are creating Chrysler, GM, Ford, Harley Davidson, Jeep, all in a person's mind to walk into that dealership. And when they walk into that dealership, the dealer should be privileged that they've actually chosen their dealership above all the other dealerships out there. And it's the customer service, then it's the customer relations, it's everything that happens when they walk in the door. But what you're doing is helping them come through that door and also giving them that experience when they walk through the door as well. So what areas do you recommend that a dealer should be looking at to make their customers and their service better?
Well, I mean, I think most of us will agree everything starts on the website these days, right? It used to start out on the lot. First thing I would ask is, what are you doing on your website that you're not doing at your dealership? Now, we haven't seen too much of this here, maybe getting that way again now that I think of it. But through COVID, we didn't have any old age units. But in previous times, if we were to find an old 300-day unit somewhere back around back that nobody knew about, where would the first place it would go? Detail, and then it's on the showroom floor or on the point, right? Because the more times the customer sees a car, the more chances there are of it actually selling. Who thought? So are you doing that on your website? I mean, I see it happen every day. If salesmen run out to the transport truck, grab one right off the truck, that here's the one they're looking for. They've had one in stock for 7 months. It's the twin, but we're going to sell the one that's coming off the truck because that's the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
We have software that helps package all that and solve both of those problems for the dealer and the customer, right? The dealer, wants to move the inventory that he needs, stuff for whatever reason, maybe a great piece of merchandise to sell. But if he can get that out to the people that are looking, guess what they're looking for? A deal. Well, isn't that the one we should be making a deal on? He needs to get rid of it. They need a good deal. I mean, the manufacturer recommends the price that we sell them for. I'm not sure why we've gotten away from that. I don't think we really intended to put every car in stock on sale when we came out of COVID, but that's what's happened. So a lot of things that I think are probably confusing and, disrupting that natural online presence. You get to the website, and I can probably point out 3 or 4 in my mind. You hit the website and you get 3 or 4 pop-ups. I mean, they're not even in the front door. Give them a chance to settle in, welcome them in. Would you like some tea or coffee or something? Well, that happens on the website too, right? It says statistically you have 7 seconds to visually arrest your audience. Well, how visually arresting is an image and then boom, 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 with all the pop-ups. So it just feels like a car lot that a customer drove up to and they ran out to the lot to open their door. So that's the way I see it. And I think there's a thinking along those lines that dealers are starting to realize. You just can't turn all these things loose and leave them to the provider to make them work, that's not necessarily going to get it done either.
You said something there that really resonated with me, and that's that people now are informed before they even go to the dealer. You know, they know the colors of the cars, they know the spec that they want. They've looked at everything, so they're walking now into a dealership with a list, and they've done that research online. And if they're on a place that gives them that information online, and then they have that interaction before they even go to the dealership, it means they're more likely to go to the person that assisted them.
I just wanted to drop out the bottom of the funnel, right? If we can help them along the ways, I can think of a technology that asks certain questions on a dealership website. I don't think most dealers even know this stuff's available. But what we found is if it helps them get what they're looking for, they're very willing to answer questions. And it'll tell you where they are so you meet the customer in that process. I'm just beginning. Well, do we really need to talk numbers on a bunch of different cars before we find the one you like, or would it be better to set up a sort of a comparison shopping? Well, let's take a look at this model, compared to that model. I'll get them both pulled up, and you start that rapport building. And it's amazing. Even as I get in dealerships today, I have to sort of explain what that word means. I was doing it here in a dealership recently, and somebody said, "Oh, you mean connect?" I'm like, I guess that's what they call it now. Yeah, that's what they do on their phone is they connect. So that's sort of like you connect and start learning and rapport. I said, okay, let's go with that.
Yeah.
So it's and again, that's the generational changes in even this one industry. A lot to do with how we sell, a lot to do with how we, how the customers come in, right?
I have a good friend who's just up on the Canadian border, and he deals with kids, 17, 18-year old, and he teaches about bullying and anti-bullying policies. And he was saying to me that they have to teach empathy, that people have lost empathy. And I was saying, you mean you have to teach it? He goes, yeah. And, motor trade, you need empathy in a motor trade, but jumping away from the sales department, what about the other departments, like the service department? How are you assisting service department to draw in people? And because the the the, the sales department get the client, the service department's job is to keep the client.
Sure. Oh, I think, well, sort of back up, you said $1 trillion industry. We were saying the automotive business was $1 trillion industry 20 years ago. I don't even know if sure there's a word for it anymore. I mean, if you look at the average car, the average used car inventory is probably over $30,000 at most dealership slots for a used car. So, we're working on those. Prices continue to go up, but you're right. If we've got to get the car sold before we get a customer, right? I mean, they're much as, some people don't like that transaction part of it, it has to start somewhere. So I think what you said, if they showed up at your dealership, you're already above the rest for some reason, maybe not even known. Certainly don't mess it up by, acting like a car salesman. They're there. Talk, understand needs, do a needs assessment, the things that we used to do that somewhere went around in COVID. Oh, we got one more of those, Mr. Joe. Oh, you don't want, hey, he don't want it, 15,000 over, it's like, that's not customer service.
That's
That's,
order takers.
gouging. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you could even call it now, those same salesmen are like, customers came out here this year and they're like, oh, we want to negotiate now, or they weren't sure how to work a car deal anymore. It's like, boss, they said they want a discount. So it's fun. But I think the service part of it, and particularly as we see dealer margins shrinking, they're trying to figure out, well, how are we going to make up for that money? And I think if COVID did anything, it opened the average dealer's eyes to how much money there is to be made in service. And that's not from a gouging standpoint. I see every day where, national brands that just have service departments regularly are 20, 30, $50 more than a dealership oil and service change. But the mentality is the dealership's more expensive, right? So another one of these types of on-site conversion tools that we were talking about has to do with service. It is a video coupon, or if you're a luxury liner, they don't like that word. Luxury lines like to say, special offers or service offers, featured offers, something other than a coupon. Funny thing is, coupon clippers, depending on what survey you read, spend 23 to 38% more money. I don't care what you call it as long as they come in, you know. So what we typically see after watching this product since about, I don't know, 2019, 2020, is these people that are going out, they got out of the corral, you know, they went to Jiffy Lube, Goodyear, Firestone, somewhere. They didn't want to go to the dealership anymore. Maybe it was, I'll tell you what probably started it. They needed tires. And they got a number from a dealership on tires, and they said, "Is that the price or my social security number?" Because that's all we, you know, had done for so long. And they skipped out. Well, they're down at Jiffy Lube, or Goodyear, something messed up on the tire deal. And they were getting their oil changed there because it was, hey, I was already there. I got my oil changed, and that's how it starts. But something happens along the line, just like other businesses have problems. They have a bad experience, and they get online and start searching. So with Google's local search versus SEO, you know, more worldwide, you're really able to get down into those, you know, areas of where you would be looking for that type of service, typically 10 or 15 miles, right? So this is really neat how it interacts with, you know, the search engines to come up through both SEO terms that'll rank organically over time, but also the Google business profile, which has become, you know, the ZMOT of decision making. You know, that was usually when our parents went to the furniture store and there was a decision to be made and the salesman went off and, okay, we're going to get it, honey. Well, they call that, Google coined this phrase ZMOT, zero moment of truth. Well, that happens now in your living room. So with Google doing all that heavy lifting for us, we post those or push those service video specials out to Google Business Profile. They can be viewed, seen, and one click, they're converting on the dealership's website. So it's working in tandem with what Google has said we want to do. It's always nice not to make them mad. And then when they get to the, you know, the actual video of what's going to be done in the site, we found that a lot of female clientele are less apprehensive about making decisions because they've now seen a video that actually explained what we was doing. You know, typically they said it was an oil and filter change. What else you want to know? I mean, the advisor might even get a little frustrated. Well, if you've not made these decisions, you may need a little more info. So we found those kinds of things. But more than anything, ask any of your friends how many of them called down to the dealership and asked to make a service appointment or ask about something. It's you get put on hold, transferred around. You know, it's just impossible to staff for those high peak times. So now what happens? They go on your website. They have this video featured of what they're doing. Yes, I want that. They put their name and email. You know, so we can email it to them, put it in their Google Wallet, you know, Apple Wallet, whatever, however, Western Union, whatever you want. They're going to get them the coupon. And as that coupon is going to the customer, a notification is going to the dealership because what the customer is going to do next is what? Well, I got the coupon, still got to make the appointment. Dealership gets the notification, calls up, "Hi, Miss Jones, this is Don down at ABC Motors, and our system notified us that you downloaded an oil change coupon. We were just reaching out to see if we could schedule a time for you to drop that off, or maybe you'd like to wait while we do it here for you." And it's a real high touch experience to a high tech experience that happened on their website. And as it goes, that's all she wrote.
You know, I I'm trying to put myself into someone's shoes, and you know, there's a couple of things there. One is if you'd be surprised the amount of dealerships that when you type onto Google and you'd actually type in a dealership in an area, say in Houston, Texas, how many will pop up, but how many will pop up but will be scrappy or will be missing something to draw the person to that, you know, to them. And the other thing is, I've always said I've worked in multimedia and I worked in video for a long time, and I remember saying, you know, a picture paints 1,000 words, but a video paints 1,000,000. And if you have a video, it interacts with the person's desire and answers their questions. And if they see that in the video, the dealership is clean, if it looks professional, if the people are tidy, all these micro points that will actually draw them closer to actually getting the coupon or making an appointment. And especially
For sure.
with women, you know, I know and you know that some women feel very uncomfortable going to certain dealerships. And if a dealership really understands the needs of everybody, it can triumph in that area over its competitors.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I see dealers that are doing ladies' nights or, special things around women because, again, a little different audience. And, we've been changing our oils since we were 16 years old. It's a little different for them, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of that stuff that plays into it and gives, again, it just represents a group that hadn't been represented. We've all tried to figure out how to deal with it. Uh, this has been one of the best things in the area of service that we've seen for those. Actually, funny thing, specialized services, throttle body injection cleaners, stuff. These are services that most service directors would like to have their advisors offering customers. They're so busy just trying to get them off the drive and make sure they don't send in a bad review. They don't even have time or take time to show them the value of the things that they could get. But that's a very,
The
good
secret,
instance.
the secret as well of a dealership to be successful is upselling. And that's, as you say, you come into the service, but have you need new tires or whatever, but it's not trying to get the wool over someone's eyes. It's actually providing a service because you care about the person. How do you change the mindset of a dealership to actually program them to upsell?
It's funny, and you'll appreciate this. Most service departments, they laugh because about twice a year, the boys up front are going to come back and work the service drive. And they start bringing donuts every day. And about, by the end of the week, they've all pretty much fizzled out. And it's a different, I call it a servant's heart. If you have a servant's heart, it doesn't matter if there's a sale that needs to take place or if there's just some, point them in the right direction. I would, I would, I would suggest that pointing them in the right direction is still a transaction in that consumer's mind. Maybe the money took place, but there was an exchange of information and value. And wonder who they'd call next time if they had an automotive need. But there's so much demand, as you know, from being in sales. Got to sell, sell, sell. And we got to, more than we did, and your objectives. And, that's hopefully positive pressure, but we know that it turns negative and that gets to be that high pressure comes through the sale. So, the customer will experience that if that's in the case. So I think it's, remember, you sort of get neutral, if you will, but you get a tough old deal, you might have to go shake it off a little before you greet the next customer. We also know the guy that just sold the last car is more likely to sell the next car. So I
Yeah.
think just being aware, we learned so much just growing up. I think, Joe, just from our conversations, listening and learning to other salespeople, the old pros, so to speak. And I don't see a lot of that information sharing. There's not a lot of inquisitive. It's
We're
very
all
independent.
pros now. Do you know
Well, speak for yourself. Like
that?
really somebody coming. Uh,
Okay, I'm
no,
an
but
old pro.
yeah, okay. No, it's funny, I say I start to sound like my granddad, but I think we take things a little differently as we get a little bit of the ego and testosterone out of us as males and start seeing there's a bigger picture because just slowing down and being aware of things, for me has been tremendous. I mean, just particularly in this business.
Yeah, and it's a business that's, I've said it before, it's always meandering and there's always a bottleneck. It's a business that always has a bottleneck. It's new car bottleneck or used car
Urgent and
bottleneck.
unimportant. Urgent and unimportant. No
Yeah.
important and unurgent. That's just always putting fires out. But
Well,
and I think that's another thing that we get at GDS. I mean, when someone even enrolls, we know like just tell them what, prove it, and we'll go get all the homework because they've got so many hats they're wearing, and those things come into play, and it's a tremendous amount of energy, information that changes place. So we learn a little bit more as we get more and more involved, so that we don't see all those different mistakes. Because if you buy something from this guy, he didn't know what that guy did, or if there's redundancies. But back to the on-site stuff, I think we've got to decide as consumers. I mean, if we're going to put our consumer hat on it, from a dealer perspective, what do you like when you get on the website? Do you like things popping up in front of you, can't get your attention? Our goal is to serve up that engagement. To me, the difference is a pop-up is just something that mindlessly goes off on any page, anytime. Some of them you can't even turn them off. But engagement pieces is meeting the customer at the right time, at the right place. We know if we don't get them where they need to be in 2 clicks, what's about to happen. So we've got to take all that into consideration and use our time wisely. And there's so many different ways we can engage that customer. They've looked at this, this, and this. Well, Looks like you're looking for something specific. Are you looking for this, this? They'll answer those questions, and then we move them into the, well, this is helpful. Everybody talks about an Amazon experience online, but they don't know how to do it on a automotive dealership website. So I think these are the technologies trying to come together.
But it's something about Amazon that's just sprung up. Walmart, you know, is worth more than Amazon, or Amazon is worth more than Amazon,
Well,
Walmart. But
mhm.
you buy something in Walmart, and a truck doesn't follow you home with your package.
Yeah.
So Walmart are probably somewhere got it right, where Amazon, it's the postage service and everything that's costing more on it. And I was kind of thinking on that. But the digital, we've talked about the experience about people coming on, and the pop-ups and the coupons, and really those pieces of information, digital information and solution to get them to the dealership. What other services can you sort of talk about that you feel is a real benefit to a dealership to really have that experience as well, a better experience?
Well, I mean, I think the one that probably first one for the other two is what's my trade worth? You know, I think I go back to this one particular tool we've had since 2016. And at that time, if you asked a room full of salespeople at a dealership, how many out of 10 customers come in when you do a sight unseen appraisal, they'd say three. And our tool would bring in 7 out of 10.
Wow.
Well, that question last year was 1 out of 10. And asking it this year in groups, I'm getting none out of 10, maybe one. So we're doing something 10 times in a row, up, 10 times down, and it don't work, and we keep doing it. Why would you do that? So we've used this trade-in tool, back to the on-site tools.
Yeah.
What do they want to know what their trade is? Of course it is. We were taught to make it so low that we didn't get hurt if they came in here because they couldn't ever tell what the car is worth. Well, that ain't worked real well for 30 years. Back in the day, we could say, Mr. Jones, I'd hate to give you a number over the phone and miss something that you had. It'd probably be a lot better if you just brought it down to the dealership. That way I give you the best number I can. That worked 20, 30 years ago. Now they just do that from their computer. Well, what trade tool are you using? Are you sending them back to your website? Are you walking them through your website? I mean, if you didn't have a tool that had an app, that may be an acceptable way. But I would certainly engage and walk them through that process. We were taught over the phone, well, does the windshield got any problems? Has it been wrecked? Has it got, well, they start going cha-ching, cha-ching. They're just deducting. They're like, I don't want to take it there. They're not already not playing fair. How about we just play pretend? Let's pretend that the customer can describe a car and tell the truth. That's what we all are afraid they won't do. That's all we really have to go for. So we give them an app, send them a link through an app, and they answer 5 simple questions, and they get back a guaranteed cash offer on the car. If they show up at the dealership and the dealership doesn't want the car, this company will clear the number themselves.
Yeah,
No extra charge.
but it would be if they say the car is as they described it. But I'm sure if it comes
Now,
in and it's got a wing mirror missing, you know.
funniest story I can tell you. First of all, I never really knew there was a place called Kalamazoo. I just thought it was a fictitious place. Well, I find myself up installing this very trade-in tool in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So I did one store one day, and I went to their next door and was doing that one. And I came back around lunch, and the sales manager said, I got to tell you about this one I had last night. I said, well, what happened? He says, well, this lady comes in, nicest one ever. She puts on the trade, nothing wrong, nothing she wants to talk about. And I'm out in the front lot looking for this, pristine car. And I finally look around and I say, well, there it is. I see the back of it. And he walks around the front. The entire front bumper simply, not like it's been wrecked. It is missing. You can see the radiator and everything. And he's just like, I couldn't believe it. She said it was the nicest one ever. So I walked out to her and I said, Miss Jones, my name is, and da 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 da. And he said, couldn't help but notice you said your car was the nicest one ever. She goes, yeah. He says, well, I couldn't also help but notice it was missing the front end. She goes, yeah, but once you put a new bumper on it, it's going to be just as good as new. Well, that's all fun and game, but where is this silly conversation taking place? at the
in the
dealership.
dealership.
You
Yeah.
want to have it taking place with your guys over the phone and send me
No.
20 pictures, and I can't even give me a VIN number, but 17% of the time. You're trying to get them to send you 20 pictures? So,
Yeah, I can remember a guy coming in with a trade and the wheel covers were buckled. And I kind of went, what's going on here? That he'd bought them and they were too big because he was trying to trade in the car and jam them on. And he had cable ties holding them in. It was like, sorry, we can't take your, what was that then?
well, bless their heart, it's like
Chrysler
their last.
Shadow. Was it, do you remember the Chrysler Shadow? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's their only opportunity to negotiate. I mean, you give them all the numbers and they're still confused. Bless their heart. They do this once every 3 or 4 years, but it's just let the process play out. I bring it up with salespeople all the time. I'm like, let's just say she had an old horse for sale. You put your ad in the paper. The first guy that shows up says, "Is that the horse out there in the field?" "Yes, sir." "Ooh, wee, that horse looked like she swayed back from here." "Well, that horse looked like she'd been rode hard, put up wet. You
Tell
reckon she'll
me.
make it home without dying on me?" This is like that's well. The next guy shows up and says, "Is that the horse?" "Yes, sir." "Ooh, the right color and everything.
Yeah.
I just been looking for an old mare for my kids to learn to ride on." Now, if you had those two customers in front of you, which one's going to pay the most money?
Yeah, the
The
one.
second.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we treat customers like the first one, and we wonder why they don't do business with it. We go out there just making fun of their car, and it's been hit more times than Joe Lewis
Yeah.
and all those things we've said over the year. And then we wonder why they don't do business with it.
Yeah.
Would you really sell your car to the lowest bidder knowing that, or would you take a lower number for a guy that was licking the paint off of it? So I think we have to learn all these things again. They can be done online, engaging in an engaging manner for customers to reap the benefits of those same things we would do in the dealership, but for some reason, after what, 2000, out going on 25 years, have not found it necessary to do online. And I think that's an opportunity.
We've said it before, and I say it a lot of times, people buy from people. And you mentioned it's about rapport. And, we talk about empathy, and empathy comes in when you're talking about a person's trade in. And you were so right that you need to get the people in and you need to have the tools and the triggers to drive them in.
Yeah.
The dealers that you work with, and I know that you work with hundreds of dealers right across the US. What are the dealers that are working with you? Are they noticing a big improvement now that they have these tools to assist them to grow their business?
Well, I think not only are they using them, I think the way they're using them just 2 years now past COVID, or whatever you want to call that period, being into what we would consider a more traditional selling environment. I think they've come up with, trying to think of just understanding that it was measured more like ROI on leads. Well, if you're giving them all away at invoice, there's not any ROI, so that rules out the table now. So how are we going to rule the effectiveness? And I've noticed a trend among dealers that just give me the leads. We'll call them. We'll do our job. Just give me names and numbers. And that's where a lot of these tools that we're talking about have gotten out of hand. I mean, some of them they just pop and pop and pop until it's like, and who would turn down 500? But is it a real customer, or is it just somebody that wanted to make the thing stop?
The reason I asked the question is because we were looking at some trends online, and the trends that we're seeing that dealers that embrace a digital aspect to their business will increase their footfall.
I think we're going to see more. And if you're talking about digital retailing itself,
Well,
that all tried to get.
it's the digital when I mean that, the dealership that makes the effort, writes the blogs, has
Oh
the
yeah,
tools online to entice the person, the people that actually tidy up their digital framework, like the services that you offer, actually from the trends is shown that more and more people will actually go to those dealers and
sure.
build a better relationship with them as well. Because what it's doing is it's building trust.
Well, it's social proof, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they're doing
yeah.
this and this and this, and their reviews are this. Um, Now, I think for sure there's a lot of those things that they're improving. So what I've seen this trend go to now, though, is from a more of a closing percentage. I want to be at 15% closing ratio. Well, good for you. I think the average internet director, 60% of their time is spent changing the lead source so their pay plan turns out right. I don't know exactly. And again, I'm not saying them all, but we've made that such a priority. Let's just get back to, taking care of customers. They're just looking for someone they can trust, right? So, when they're engaging in these things, they're seeing your social proof. What are you doing on Facebook? Are you engaging with the customers? And, one of these same tools, I'm embarrassed to say, I said wouldn't work because they were going to automate a post to a dealer's Facebook. I'm like, well, that ain't going to work. No one's going to anybody dealer's Facebook to buy a car. Turns out I was wrong. I had a dealer up in the Northeast call me and say, what's going on with Facebook? We've had like 21 sales this month. And I'm like, holy cow. Sure enough. So I think, there's different ways and there's not just one way, but I think, as we think from you and I from a marketing standpoint, there's many touch points. Obviously, one of the biggest, challenges is crediting the right lead provider. And I don't know that that'll ever be done exactly. We do things that, help minimize those and set rules for like, they converted on the first visit. We know it was them when they came back. We have their IP address, but we don't credit that sale on a second or later visit because that's just the way they do it. So I think, all those things are heading that direction, but with more of a push to get more names and phone numbers, primarily, as you know, this leads. Some of these tools have been instrumental. I think back on one store, 2 months ago, they said, hey, something's down. I said, well, you got this, and this. And, well, can you fix it? I said, give me a. This was the second weekend of the month. By the end of the month, it was up 175%.
Wow.
The next, he said, and so I just got the second month, which was last month, and it's up about another 175% over those numbers because the whole month was not affected by that change. So, he's selling, he got 30 sales on an $1,800 a month product. That pencils all day long at a cost per sale. So I see a trend of measuring in, okay, how many cars did I sell with this provider and what was the cost? Which is, we've done that over the years. It's just we got onto this internet closing ratio and it's like, okay, it's $2,100 a close. Is that really working? Well, and they have favorites and justify. It's real easy. What they do this month, last month, and what they've done year to date. Because if you're $2,200 a car sold, I'm going to guess that ain't penciling.
The one thing that I'm amazed with those prices that you have as well are the percentage, they're amazing, and if dealers can keep getting them, it's just keeps on going up and up and up. And when you were telling the story, I'm just looking at it here. My There was Ferrari. I think if they charge you for, they'll deliver the car to you for free, right? But if you come and pick it up, they'll give you a tour of the factory, but it costs you 500 euros. And what
Yeah.
happened was people were paying to pick up their car.
Yeah. European delivery. That used to be
Yeah.
popular, but through
Yeah.
COVID, it got real popular. They didn't have anything else to do anyway.
Yeah. So it's quite amazing that the tools that you have and what you're offering the dealership will only just improve their bottom line in all the different departments on it. Don, tell me, if someone is looking to, take your services, or someone wants a dealership wants to know more about what you're offering, how can they get in touch with you? Give us the company website, your LinkedIn profile. Give us all the details there, please.
Yeah, all the above. Global Dealers Solutions, LinkedIn and Facebook, and our website, gdsdealers.com. But um, you can have my phone number, 214-458-3500, because that's where most of my dealers are looking for two words on it. They got things to do. So, whatever would be most productive, I'd invite you to look at some of the information that, we showcase, some of our, um, I was talking about this new Gen Z. I've got an article that I really found that really represented what I've been trying to, you know, figure out. And then I think it's like 14 million Gen Z will buy cars this year. Better understand what you're looking for. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not pushovers. They are more dependent on parents and friends as influencers. So you can't kick out the second baseman. But if you'll be patient with them and respectful more than anything, respect, this younger Gen Z generation will buy a car from you. And I
Well,
think it's this again, understanding your audience.
it's a conveyor belt, isn't it? Tell me, I always ask everyone just before the end, tell me what you got wrong to get right.
Well, I would say in the bigger picture, I really thought that most general managers, maybe a service director, they were just, tired of retail, whatever, could transition over. And that in itself has been a little bit of a challenge. Um, so we had to go back to, finding the resource part of what we do so that at any experience level, it's hard to have five years experience when you're 20. That's probably not the guy that we're going to send out to talk to you about your dealership. Nothing with age, but we've also seen some of those 20-year-old that had a father in the business or knew what to look for. More than anything, it's about the servant's heart. We're here to serve. I tell the story all the time. I thought when I was the number two Toyota dealer in the country selling 800 cars a month and still number two, I was beating on my chest like I was King Kong. But if I'd have known what they were doing back in service all that time, I'd be retired by now. That's where all the money's made. So anyway, I think the thing is overall, we're a few degrees off. We've talked about that. Those sometimes are the few degrees that you have to go back and figure out. It just didn't work out the way you want. Nothing's perfect, but you don't start out with a plan with the idea of changing it. You just have to sort of roll with it, refine, refresh, re-roll out, and that's what I think has made us successful more than anything. Listening to dealers.
Yeah.
I remember when the first conversation we had is, why do y'all charge us tax every time you sell us a product? I'm like, what are you talking about? Setup fees. Like, what it costs the money? He goes, well, then figure it out in the monthly. I don't need to have an extra. And I'd never thought of it that way. Well, as a result of that, I'm not saying there's none. There are a couple if there's trainers and stuff, but as a rule, no setup fees and no long-term contract. You're 30 days away from getting away out of that
Yeah,
product.
I get it. When we used to, say anyone listening to this who's in the motor trade or has ever been in the motor trade is always in your blood. It's always in your blood. You're always drawn back to it. If you've had spent time in the motor trade a couple of years and you change career 50 years down the road, the motor trade is still in your blood. Like, it's the only one of the industries that kind of stays with you because it's fun, it's exciting, and everybody has a story about it. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of it. The other part as well is that, you know, dealers, they need to keep moving with the times. And if they keep moving with the times and embracing where we started at the beginning of here about the digital age, and especially as AI is coming in as well, which can really assist the dealers in being more successful. And I know that you play with that as well. That this is a time, in my opinion, because of what has just happened in America as well, the automotive trade in America, I think, is going to explode. I really think. I think, yeah, yeah,
There's a lot of dealers hoping so. I hope you're
yeah.
right.
I believe so. Don, thank you for coming on the show. It's been great. Look forward to hearing your success, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Have a great day.